Yeah, just well, I guess like showing like 24-hour pressure tendency, show like bombs like psychokinesis. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of that. I've also got things like vorticity, pressure, speed. What? I'm like, wow. Yeah.
You ready? Okay, we're going to get started. I am John for today, again. So, I'm going to start just looking at the radar, get an idea of what's going on. Depending on where you got your forecast the past few days, you could think we'd be in 4 inches of snow right now, or you could think we're seeing nothing. And if you look outside, we're seeing nothing. That is because, as you can tell by the radar, all of our moisture is stuck just right below us. We are riding the edge of this precip. Milwaukee's getting enough precip. Upper Illinois is getting precip, but not us. Not yet, anyway. You see this? Almost the entire East Coast is also getting precip. It's this big swath, which is associated with a low-pressure system we'll see later. A little bit of a system going on down in Louisiana and Florida. They're getting, it's rain down there, obviously. It's not cold enough down there yet. And then in the Pacific Northwest is also getting a little bit of precip as of right now. So, if we go to the station plot map,
surface or upper air?
What?
Surface or upper air?
Oh, surface station plot.
I didn't realize that was included in the superfoods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, you can tell on radar, if you live in the East Coast, or even the eastern half of the U.S., you've got cloudy skies today. There is almost no break in the clouds at all. A couple have like, what's that, 3/4 coverage, but that's about it. As for us, you see, look, Milwaukee's got the 2 dots. I think that's medium drizzle, medium rain. Upper Illinois, Chicago, they've got also the 2 dots, easy rain. But over here in Dubuque, they're getting snow at 32. No one else is. So I don't know if they're just special today, or they've been blessed by the snow gods. I don't know what's going on. But, as you can tell, yeah, there's a solid line where the precip ends like we saw on radar. And that big swath of it around that's almost in the comma head shape is all associated with the low pressure system, which is currently situated about right over St. Louis. As you can see, it's at 71, whereas everything else, I guess it's kind of north. That's 68. See it blows right around here, border of Illinois and Missouri. And they're all in, I had to look up this symbol. They're in haze. I don't know if that's just like misty kind of air right now. I haven't been able to check. But lots of haze going on associated with that low pressure system. If we go over to the Oregon, Washington region, kind of a similar story in that they're also covered in clouds. However, they're seeing a lot more snow than we are. There's snow, some rain, mostly snow. Which is interesting because a lot of places on the coast are in upper 40s, 49, almost 50. Look, 50 right there in some places. But then, right at the border, they're 32 and getting moderate snow. So that's pretty interesting. There's probably a short front right there. So, with that in mind, we could go to the satellite over the Pacific, please. This one.
That's what we call it.
Yeah. So, at the start of the week, you just see band of moisture after band of moisture forming on and on and on again. This system shoots off like a little bitty spitter. Isn't that so cute? He's just so wrapped up in on himself. And then he just kind of disappears. But I thought that was really cute. He goes away. But same story again and again. Bands of moisture, all hitting Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington. We're just getting tons of moisture right now. And as we watch, as the week develops, once these few bands get through, you'll see up here, the cloud speeds really start to pick up. Like especially closer to today. Put that right for a second. Yeah, watch. Just super fast cloud and moisture movement in the northern Pacific. Well, why is that? So, we'll get to that in a second. However, if we switch to the satellite over the US, the UW-AOS works. Yeah, you can see it's been on and off cloudy this week, and that is pretty evident. You see we just get moisture areas again and again passing over Wisconsin. You can see the cold air and possibly snow coming up from northern Canada, almost reaching all the way down here. There's a time step at some point where we do get a blip of it for just a second, but it disappears pretty fast. Look, you see that moisture band associated with the low clouds in this way. So you can see our cloudiness, but we don't get any of the moisture associated with it. If you watch on the edge of the lakes, you can kind of see the lake effect snows and just the cold air, especially like right here really quick. It's pretty weak at the moment, but it's still a nuisance. Like if you're participating in Weather Challenge, our current city is right there, Traverse City, Michigan, and they're getting just snow after snow after snow. And it's probably because all of this cold air is coming down, resulting in lake effect snow over that area. So, yeah, cold air. That's about it, what I have for the satellites. If we could go to the 250 millibar level. Oh, wait, sorry, go back. Where was it? I'm looking at the GFS right now, but it was the ones that's like got the black screen in the background. Yes, thank you. Oh, can we go to 250? Sorry. Works. I'm just gonna stay in the first few time steps though, because I'm gonna go up until about right now, noon today, and then Patrick's gonna take over the forecast from there. So he'll tell you if we're gonna see any snow today or not. But yeah, right now the main feature, super strong jet over the northern Pacific, like really strong. We saw that big increase in cloud speed. That's associated with that. It's just really picking up, shoving a lot of moisture towards the North Pacific. We are in our region, there's kind of like 2 jet cores and one in the northeast, but those aren't really affecting us too much right now. If we could step forward like 2 kind of steps, what is that? Yeah. So this is right now, you see it's sticking to the south, kind of right along where we see most of that moisture, it's getting up to us. And there's also, the Hudson Bay Low has formed. We'll see that in every level of the atmosphere that I'm going to look at today. It's just sitting there with a bunch of cold air, just spinning away. Okay, if we could go to 500. You can kind of see that low pressure associated with all of our precip and moisture sitting over the St. Louis region. It's a bit of a short-lived trough at the moment, and there's a lot of vorticity associated with it. And then if you look up off the Gulf, in the Gulf of Alaska, you can see still that jet still has presence at this level, but it's almost like keeping this tightly constructed low, like just sitting in the Gulf of Alaska. It's not letting it move south because the winds are so strong. It's just keeping it up there. And so if we step forward a couple, you can see it just sit there and spin and try to move, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It just sits there until it dissipates. A couple streams of vorticity hitting the western portion of the U.S. right now. They're getting like mountain snow and the standard that they always get at this time of year. So that's normal. And then once again, our friend the Hudson Bay Low, plenty of vorticity, just sitting there, spinning. Go to 850, please. Yeah. So, same kind of story. You can see our low in the heights a lot easier here, and you can also see that low up in the Gulf of Alaska, just still kind of stuck there. But I think the main story kind of here is that our low, and at the surface level it's easier to see, but there's kind of a bit of a high right here. here like a week high, and they're working in tandem to funnel all of this cold air down into the central U.S. So like Kansas, Nebraska, all those places are getting a lot of cold air as a result of the low that's giving so much precipitation on the East Coast. So that's kind of fun to see that the entire half of the U.S. right now is mostly being dominated by one low pressure system just sitting over Missouri. And then, once again, super cold polar air sitting with the Hudson Bay low. If that could break out there, it would be really cold. We haven't got that far yet, thank goodness. And then, yeah, the low kind of hangs around a little bit as it moves, but it doesn't, it tries to weaken, but then it goes back, so it's just kind of existing as it goes along to the northeast. And then, go to the surface. Yeah, so same story. You can see the common head of moisture, like this is 3-hour accumulated precipitation, so in this sense, it's the common head of moisture associated with the low, just covering the entirety of the eastern half of the U.S. Once again, we're right on that borderline of getting any precip at all. It's kind of hard to tell what will happen. But if you look at the Pacific Northwest, you can see they're getting a decent amount of precipitation. Actually, this is right now, so they're getting a lot of precip associated with the jet, the low, and everything just pushing all of that moisture towards them. So Patrick will talk more on that, but that's something that's really interesting to keep an eye on. And just right now, since we're so close to getting any kind of precip, any snow, anything, I pulled up a sounding right now for this time step from the RAP, just to see what's going on. And it's like, it wants to so bad, but there's just not enough moisture yet. There's a solid dry layer above, and also below, like really near the surface, it's pretty dry. There's enough for us to see the super cloudy skies we're getting right now, but other than that, there's not really enough to have any precip at the moment. That might change, as we'll see from Patrick, but as of right now, it's not looking like we're getting anything unless that moisture makes its way up. So that's all I have. I know I went kind of fast. If anyone has any questions or comments or anything. If not, I will turn it over to Patrick to give us our forecast.
Thank you, Libby. Can we start with the drought monitor, please, Pete? So I will touch on the rain and snow chances for our area. I think we have it actually right there.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'll talk on the rain and snow chances for our area, also the Pacific Northwest. But I wanted to start with this picture. So we are out of a drought for the first time since like May or June in our region, but we haven't seen a lot of precipitation over the past couple of weeks. It started out pretty heavy precipitation in September, October, but we've kind of lulled out in November. So over our region, although we're not in a drought at this time, it might be interesting to see how this evolves. But I want to point out two areas. First, Louisiana and Mississippi have been in a drought for a couple of months now, an exceptional drought. And I'll pull up a map of the forecast of precipitation. We'll see how that might change going forward. And then you can notice the Pacific Northwest is also analyzed to be in a drought. And of course, they get a ton of precipitation. This is probably like they've only gotten 100 inches out of their 150 or whatever. Whereas over our region, we get 30 inches a year. So we'll see that the drought is relative to where you are over the U.S., but this is still a pretty significant drought, and we'll see how these two areas might change going forward here. So if we could go to weather.gov, please. I'll show my favorite QPF map of the quantitative precipitation forecast of liquid precipitation. Okay. Here, so if we could scroll down to the Outlook, current Outlook maps, and QPF, and if we could potentially make it bigger and us if it's, okay, perfect. So we'll step for day by day. So we notice our two drought areas, Louisiana and the Pacific Northwest. are forecasted to get liquid precipitation. This is from tonight into tomorrow evening. Pretty similar areas of precipitation with the maximums around like 2 to 3 inches over Mississippi, Louisiana, and then all along the Pacific Northwest. And if we step through here, we'll go to day 2. We can see sort of the same picture for the Pacific Northwest. This area of precipitation has moved slightly east, but there's still precip for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Over our region, I'll touch on this. This might be our second round of snow we might get from Sunday to Monday. Looking like a better chance of snow than this storm that was moving over our region today. Then let's go to day 3. We'll notice, the same exact picture from the Pacific Northwest. The precipitation's cleared out over the east. We have some feature over the northeast. Largely a lack of precipitation for much of the middle part of the country, aside from Pacific Northwest. We'll go to day 4 now. This is now Monday evening into Tuesday. Another bullseye for the Pacific Northwest. Lack of precipitation now everywhere, for the most part, over much of the United States. This might be some lake effect snow, which we can touch on that when we look at the actual forecast maps. Let's go to day 5, please. Same exact picture, Pacific Northwest. Same exact picture for most of the United States. Let's go to day 6. Oops. I knew that was going to happen. That's fine. Same exact picture for the Pacific Northwest. Mostly dry for much of the United States. And then day 7. Here's more precipitation for the Pacific Northwest, and largely a lack of precipitation for the United States. So we'll touch on why is there this continuous region of precipitation for the Pacific Northwest. Let's look at the totals throughout the week. So these totals right now at this time, this is tonight into Monday, they're about 4 to 5 inches over this region, and then maybe 2 to 3 for the other drought area that I highlighted. Let's go day 1 through 3. Totals go up a little bit. Day 1 to 5. Now we're in the 10 to 15 inches of liquid precipitation. Day 1 through 7. Now we have some regions over 20 inches of liquid precipitation over 1 week, which anywhere in the world, that's pretty substantial. Especially when you factor in most of this is going to be snow. So let's now, if we could, go back to the weather.gov just homepage. I think one more click. And then we'll scroll up, and could you search Mount Rainier for me, please, in Washington? So one of my favorite things to do when I'm bored is look at mountain forecasts on this weather.gov page, because they can be really wacky. So let's go to Mount Rainier. And if we could enhance this, I'll read this out loud for you. So let's see here, Mount Rainier, total daytime accumulation of 35 to 41 inches. But this is just today, whatever today is. Tonight, 49 to 55 inches possible. Then we go the next day, 22 to 28 inches. The next day, 16 to 22. You can see 23 to 29 inches. I mean, this is a continued heavy snow for an entire week. And so we might be talking, 200, 300 inches of snow after this is all done. Obviously, nobody's up on top of Mount Rainier, especially right now, so this can't be verified. But this is still, you don't see this on normal forecasts, 55 inches of snow, and that's in a 12-hour period. And you can see look at the wind chills. Like, it's between -15 and -22, and you get 55 inches of snow. That would be pretty cool to be up there, but you probably couldn't get out if you were to go up there. I looked, they closed all the roads up to Mount Rainier, obviously, because you would not want people going up and hiking and getting buried as they go up the mountain, if they could even see where they're going. So, yeah, check out Mount Rainier anytime you're, bored and want to see some fun weather. It's always like this, just something wacky. And if we could go back one click, please. Maybe it's 2. I just want to highlight, there's winter storm warnings, obviously. That's an understatement for the amount of snow that's going to fall. And I'm sure places like Crater Lake and Mount Shasta will also be getting snow from this. So check out any of these mountain ranges and you'll see probably something pretty substantial. And if we could, let's highlight
You got
our...
flood watch too on the edge.
Yeah, the
That's that
flood watch, you get
rain.
20 inches of rain. Yeah, that's a flood. And if we could go over our area and click Madison, you'll just see we were earlier, if we could scroll down to the forecast here, the National Weather Service is still saying rain and snow likely for our region. Potentially. The chances keep going down because the models have that band of snow coming up towards us and then it does not ever go north of us. We're kind of on the boundary between rain or snow and no precipitation. But this area of precipitation from Saturday to Sunday keeps getting more substantial and more likely. And I'll touch on that as we go to the forecast. But this might be our actual chance of, winter weather. Interesting that it's rain and snow likely for this time right now. So if we could go to our forecast maps, please. Like the ones we had up with Libby. Perfect. And we can I'll start with the surface at 12 hours in the future. So this is a look at tonight around 7 p.m. You can see we're still under a region of maybe precipitation with a low sitting to our south. Largely, there's not a lot of strength. This is 1,009 sea level pressure, so it's probably just a cyclonic rotation more so than an actual low pressure system. Other than that, obviously precipitation over the Pacific Northwest, but most of the action is over the Gulf of Alaska into Alaska itself. Everywhere else is pretty tame. We can see some of that precipitation over Louisiana, where you have a gigantic subtropical high, so it'd be funneling moisture from the Gulf, and then you have another low pressure over Texas, which also funnels moisture up. With slight warm air advection, if you see the thickness lines, and all of this isobaric flow would be moving up over the coast, and that's where you see that precipitation on the warm side of that warm air advection. Over our region, we're sort of in this no man's land. We're not going to get any warmer, not going to get any colder. It's probably cloudy over us, so we'll probably stay in the mid-30s for the entire day. And then you can see that cold air advection over the middle part of the country with the lower thicknesses stretching all the way down to Kansas and into Oklahoma here. And so from this time, could we go to the 500 hectopascal map at 12 hours in the future? So this is a look at that same time. We can see a discombobulated region of vorticity, but there's a pretty dominant trough sitting over the entire CONUS, with its axis maybe over the mountain west here, but there's not really any vorticity to be affected. It's all kind of discombobulated. It's in these big, long, linear bands, so you're not going to get any region of strong gradient of vorticity, aside from maybe the northeast. But at this time, you can tell with our system sitting over Illinois, there's not really a region of clear trophiness, clear vorticity advection where that storm is located, so we expect it to die as it keeps moving towards the northeast. So that's one reason why we might not see that rain or snow, because that system is dying and there's not really a clear signal for forcing for that system based on the 500 level map. So if we could go back, we'll go to the surface. We'll go to 24 hours now. This is a look at tomorrow morning. We can see our low has now weakened to 1,012, so it's barely even below mean sea level pressure at 1,013. It's moving over the northeast. This might be a combination of just precipitation that's lingering with the low and also some lake effect snow. Other than that, there's a strong region of precipitation over the southeast, which is good. That's where our drought region was. And then heavy precipitation over the mountain west. And now we're in this region of cold air advection behind the low, bringing in lower thicknesses over our region. So it might be a colder night tomorrow night, or tomorrow morning, I should say. And maybe some blustery winds with straight northerly flow over our region. And if we could go to the 500 level map at this time, please. a lot of the same picture. Nothing has really changed since the last 12 hours. We have that big trough sitting over our area. You can see here's a disturbance moving over the Pacific Northwest. Very short region and very tight region of cyclonic vorticity, hitting right into Mount Rainier, which is like right where my cursor is. You can expect very vigorous rising motion, and the fact that you go from sea level to 14,000 feet in 100 miles or so. So no wonder they have 55 inches of snow predicted for 12 hours over there. But largely, other than this feature, over the entire CONUS, there's not really anything in the way of an upper level disturbance besides this gigantic trough, but there's not really a clear shortwave feature or anything that might lead to development at this time specifically. And we saw that reflected in the surface map at this time. And so now if we could go back and we'll go to Saturday evening, so 36 hours. Largely most of the same. Area of precipitation has moved from, over Alabama into Georgia and South Carolina. We're still in northerly flow. Maybe it's gotten stronger based on the spacing of the isobars. So still cold over our region. You can see something trying to form over Iowa. This is our next snowmaker, and we'll see maybe why that might be the case. But right now, it doesn't look like anything spectacular. But then here's your feature over the Gulf of Alaska, and some cyclonic disturbance that has now formed past the mountains, but surely impacted the Pacific Northwest. At this time, brought a lot of snow and rain directly into the coast. So let's go to 500 at this map. We can maybe see it was south central Iowa. So now we sort of see, rather than just a big trough, that trough has started to move to the east. And now we have a region of, maybe we have vorticity with a vorticity gradient, directly over, Iowa into Missouri. And so we might expect maybe there's some PVA by the thermal wind, especially right where the snow is forecast in eastern Iowa. It doesn't look too substantial at this time, but there is, each of these little features can bring just little bursts of vorticity, and suddenly you have that forcing for ascent. And that's what the model seemed to be picking up on, this vorticity gradient with PVA by the thermal wind right over Iowa. And so let's see where this goes. Let's look at the surface 12 hours in the future, which is when we were expected to get some snowfall. And so now we see, not out of nowhere, but we know where it formed, but 12 hours earlier, this did not exist. Now we have an 1,000-degree low, widespread snowfall over our region, the 540 line as well to the south of this storm. So we'd expect all this to be snowfall. Potentially pretty heavy. It looks like we're pretty close to the center of the low. And you can see in the thicknesses, the coldest thicknesses are being brought down to the west of that low. So this is definitely a strengthening feature. Might be our next snow chance. And so let's see what the 500 millibar map looks at this time. 48 hours in the forecast. Sunday morning. Now we have a pretty substantial development. 12 hours ago, it was messy. There was a lot of random vorticity spots. Now we have this clear feature of vorticity, a very short wave, short and stubby. And so you'd expect all your PVA to be going on right where the low is centered and directly to its northeast. So you expect pretty strong rise in motion directly in our vicinity, and we're sort of in that region where we're impacted by that rise in motion, and we also have flow off the lake. So that might lead to some lake-enhanced moisture, snowfall over our region. Maybe that keeps us a little warm, and that's why the National Weather Service was saying rain or snow. But from the thicknesses, it looks like in the morning it might be all snow, and so there's a potential for us to get a heavy burst of snow Sunday morning. And if we could go 6 hours ahead at the surface, we'll see we're already out of that region of snowfall. So it's a very quick chance, but it might lead to 1 to 2 inches of snow for our region. You can see that feature has now developed. It's below 1,000 millibars, and now is becoming a substantial weather maker for the Northeast. Here's the Pacific Northwest, still raining. Not a clear cyclonic disturbance in the direct vicinity of the Northeast, but there are 2 pretty strong features well to its north and west. And you can see in our region, now we're in another area where we're expecting cold air advection. So we'll stay cold over the weekend. and might get some snow out of this little system that develops Sunday morning and then moves off to the northeast. And we'll take a look at snow chances once at the very end here, especially over our region. If we could go back, and we'll stick with the service, but I'll just go a little faster. So let's go to 66 hours. This is a look at late Sunday, early Monday. We can see that system is now almost all the way off the coast. So it's a very short-lived feature for our region, but potentially highly impactful with the weather. Our region, here's another cyclonic disturbance that wants to form. Maybe we get into slight warm advection, but there's not a real gradient in the thicknesses or the temperature, so we might just expect, windy conditions, cloudy conditions for Saturday, Sunday, Monday over our region, and then more precipitation forecasted into the northeast. We could go back here. I'll stick with the surface. Let's go to 90 hours. Then we could see another maybe cyclonic disturbance forms. Not a lot of precipitation forecasted with it, so this will just bring cloud cover again for our region. You can see this is a pretty substantial system that forms in the Gulf of Alaska here, and the tail end of it, presumably the cold front, is slamming into the Pacific Northwest, bringing a lot of snow, especially into British Columbia as well. And here's that system that impacted us on Sunday. It's already well off the coast of the United States and Canada and moving towards Greenland here. Now it's 981, so pretty quick moving and quickly developing system. We could go back, and my last time I'll show here is if we could go to, let's go to like hour 120. And so this is Wednesday morning now. Not a lot has changed. Now we're in a high pressure region, so maybe we get some warmer advection on its backside here. And then here's that system that was sitting over our region. It's now bringing a lot of precipitation as it moved to the east. And again, rain and snow for the Pacific Northwest. So let's look at pivotal weather, and we get a look at what we might get in terms of snowfall here. We can maybe look at a sounding too when we're at pivotal weather here. So if we could jump ahead to, let's see. Let's start at 42 hours, I think. So here we start, rain snow line is directly to Madison's east here. We're right in the region of snowfall. This is Sunday at 1 a.m. our time. We go to 45 hours. Potentially, here we go. So we're still in this region of snowfall. It doesn't look like from this model run that the storm is as strong as it was in the other look we were looking at, but we're still in that rain-snow boundary. We are probably in the snowfall region, but this boundary could change. Let's go to 48 hours. Still in the area of snowfall. Rain-snow line is still sitting right over Madison, so this might be just a big wintry mess for Sunday morning. And then if we go to 51 hours, now we're sort of out of the snowfall and the system moves to the east. And so if we could go to winter weather at the very bottom, and let's look at some of the snowfall predicted totals for our region. Let's just do total snowfall since we're not that far in the model run. So you can see what sets up there, I was noticing this earlier this morning, there's sort of two bands of snowfall. One directly to our south and east, and one maybe directly to our north and west. And we're in this heavier band of snowfall, or we're not. So this will be an interesting thing to look at. Right now, this model does have like 3 to 4 inches of snowfall for us, which, based on the surface look, this seems maybe this is a little too embellished. The low was definitely moving and impacting our region, but there's not clearly a strong area of ascent over our region. Other than that, we have a low sitting to our south. So this might be overdone, but we might see, at least an inch of snow as the system moves across our region and then into the northeast as well. And this looks to be our only weather maker for the entire week. Temperatures will rebound into like the 40s. We'll sort of be in that winter to fall in between where the weather doesn't know if we're in winter or fall. We get some snow and then it melts right away. So it doesn't really feel like December, but we will see some wintry weather on Sunday at least to make us feel like we're in the holiday spirit. Just short-lived for Sunday. I believe that's all I had. Are there any comments or questions? Anything anybody wants to look at? Yeah.
Okay, I'm new here, this may be completely inappropriate, but you brought up the drought monitor
Yes.
as your first map, and mentioned that we come out of drought even though we haven't had much precipitation. And I know enough about droughts that I don't know what the drought monitor is, if it's deep or
Okay.
shallow, or, you know, if you lost a month that was dry. Do you have any guesses as to how that can happen?
Good question. I wonder, could we actually pull up the preset climate with the max and min on our climate page?
From Madison?
Yeah. I think I'll
Don't know
start with
if
that.
Ed has updated that for today, we can look.
Okay. Let's see, hopefully this one's updated.
Updated as of today, yeah, he did.
Oh, okay, perfect. So what we can see, we had a pretty continuous region of no precipitation for much of September,
The
and then,
previous water year is on there if I go down.
oh yeah, yeah, perfect.
This is last year.
Yeah, we can start here. So, right at the start of September, we started getting these little regions of precipitation with this heavier region of precipitation. Each of these increases is a storm event over our region. And so we had a long extended period where we were below average in terms of precipitation. And then starting about right at the school year started, we started getting these just frequent blips of precipitation. And if we go to our October of this year map, we sort of kept that going where you keep getting these little bits of precipitation. And so if you want to bust a drought like we did, you are going to want these, frequent small bursts of precipitation to keep the ground moist. You keep the ground moist, it can't dry out, and then you keep raining on top of it, and that moisture can keep seeping lower and lower, busting your drought. What has sort of happened since about the start of November is we can see these long-lived regions of no precipitation, and the precipitation has been very light, especially compared to what was happening in October and then into September. And so we were situated for the water year above normal, and we actually made up our deficit of precipitation, but recently we've sort of drifted below this average line of precipitation, and without these frequent bursts of precipitation, that's when you begin to develop a drought. And so we can actually look on the drought monitor page. They have outlook maps, and so what they do first, if you go to, I think current conditions, this would be good. If we could just scroll down slowly, all of these standards go into making the drought monitor map. So it's a lot of different indices. They use different drought severity indices, crop moisture index, how much precipitation has fallen, how much has fallen in the week, what's the current flow of the rivers. Those all go into making these drought pages, and all of them look different, and they sort of put them all together, and using their expertise, they can say which one is more reliable for what area of the United States. And then that goes into their drought monitor map, and then they also have outlooks. And so this would be a look at what they expect for December, where we are sitting not in a drought, we're not in any of the shading regions, and we're expected to stay in a region where we're not in a drought, but areas to our west, over Iowa and Nebraska, where we saw a drought existing, are expected to stay in that drought. And that also goes into their prediction of what are the conditions forecasted for drought over Madison, might be affected by these areas of drought to our west. So it's a big, long, complicated, algorithm that I'm sure they use and have to go through and tweak every single week to put these maps out every Thursday, but I'm not sure about the specifics of what the indices are and how they work together. So, good question. But if you can see, we can point out our seasonal outlook. I think you have to scroll up and click this one out, and then click that one again. You can see we're not forecasted to be in a drought for at least until February, and this can change weekly, but at this look, we might see, just drier conditions than normal, but not anything substantially enough for them to say we're going to be in a drought and it's going to remain for the period from December to February this time. Any other questions or comments? Perfect. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you.
All right, so where are you gonna be?